Welcome back, Boner World. We are here and we are ranking every first team player of Newcastle United. Newcastle United season has just finished up in the Premier League. We ended in 7th place. We were knocked out of the group stage of Champions League. We didn't make Europa League. Carabao Cup. Being honest, I don't remember how we lost in the Carabao Cup. Lost in the FA Cup. So we're going home trophyless this season. And we are not guaranteed a European spot. But if Manchester United wins the FA Cup, they will take the Europa League spot and Chelsea will get the Conference League spot. If Man City wins, then we are guaranteed the Conference League spot. So we still have a chance for Europe. But yeah, so I'm going to be ranking every player on Newcastle United, so let's get started. Okay, so these are the ratings that I use to base my decision on. So we have 10. The best player that player can possibly be. A Ballon d'Or is incoming. 9. Almost as good as they be. So they're very close to being a 10 out of 10, but they just are lacking. 8. They've done very well for themselves, but there's just slightly more to be desired from them, you know. 7. They have slightly exceeded expectations / exceeded expectations. You know, the slightly kind of makes a 7 seem as not as good as it is, but a 7 is still very strong, in my opinion. 6 is they basically played how they were expected to play, you know. 5, slightly below average. These are people who are just slightly not putting up enough of what they can do. 4, you played poor. You just didn't play that good this season. 3, you played horrendously. You were a bad player when you were playing on our team. 2, why is he playing? This is a player who didn't play that many games, but didn't go out on loan. And when he played, he wasn't good. Why is he even playing? We could put someone else on there. I know we were very stretched this season. Why is he playing? And the worst you could be is, why is he on the team? If you have to ask yourself this question about a player, chances are that he's not a very good player. So, you know, spoiler alert, no one got a 1, you know, luckily. And then DMP did not play. There were only 2 people who didn't play, and they were the goalies. Makes sense. So, I kind of touched on this. Just one thing to remember. I am not saying that someone is better than someone if I give them a higher rating. Example, if Dummett earns a higher score than Botman, it does not mean that Botman is a worse player. It means that Botman performed worse than how he should have, and Dummett performed better than expected. You know, this is just solely based on personal performances and what you did for the team. Starting off with the keepers. Mark and Karius did not play, so I will not be giving them a ranking. I feel like that's unfair. So let's get the dark horse, the elephant in the room out of the way. Nick Pope. He had a dislocated shoulder for basically fucking almost the whole season, so he didn't get to play that much. But we're going to give him a 6.5. He was almost slightly better than expected, just slightly below. That's why I gave him the 0.5. He's in between playing how he should play and playing a little bit better than that. He's making a lot less mistakes than what he makes. His passing is getting better. He has a higher accuracy. But let's go over the better keeper this season, Martin Dubravka. He was excellent. He made a lot of excellent saves. You know, he played very good, but he's obviously, you can tell that he's not the main keeper because he still makes some of those mistakes that, you know, you really can't be making. There are some saves that he should have that I kind of expect you to make on certain situations. That's why he gets an 8. He was very good for what he had to do. You know, backup keeper, got to come in and play basically the rest of the season because Nick Pope's going to be out. Up next, we have the defenders. I'm going to have 2 slides for defenders because there's a lot of defenders. First up, Sven Botman. He had an ACL injury, and I gave him a 5.5. I think this season Botman has he slightly underperformed what he is expected to do. Dan Burn, he had a spine injury, so he was out for, quite a few games. And if I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest Dan Burn fan. I think that we could get a more quality left back / center back. But Dan Burn got 4 goals, I believe, and 1 or 2 assists. And he was putting the clamps down on Mbappe back when we were in the Champions League. I think he got man of the match for that game. Cher, he had a hamstring injury, so he was on and off for the season. If he could play, great. We have our starting center back. If he couldn't play, then maybe we'd have Lascelles play or something like that. Fabian Cher could have been the very first defender to ever get a hat trick in the Premier League. Unfortunately, he didn't, but I really like Fabian Cher. Same thing with Trippier. He had a calf injury, so he was kind of also on and off all season. He'd be out for a couple of games, and he'd be back for a couple of games. He'd be out for 1, he'd be back for 1. He is either tied for second or tied for third for most assists in the Premier League with 10. Very good job. Very good job. The reason I'm giving him an 8.5, though, is actually for his defending. But towards the second half of the season, his defense was kind of lacking, and he was giving up goals that he shouldn't. He just plain out shouldn't. Last season, he would have never gotten cooked by Son the way that he did in that one Spurs game. Second page for defenders. Paul Dummett, a 5. I think some could argue he'd get a 6. He played how you would expect him to play coming off the bench, maybe even from the reserves, because we were very stretched this season because of injuries. But I think when he played, he just didn't do that good. Lewis Hall, he had a muscle injury. Him and Livramento are very good Trippier replacements because they are very good wing backs. They go up and attack. They're very good at dribbling. They have an all right shot, but they're also good at crossing, and they're very good at the overlap play that we do down the wing, that Trippier and Almiron used to do back in the day. So I think Lewis Hall did better than what he was expected to do. I think he did a very good job. Jamal Lascelles, he had an ACL rupture, so it really doesn't help his case. And so when he did play, I think he did good. I think he did what he was supposed to do, come off the bench and be our center back and be a good, strong captain. Kraft, sorry, buddy. You're not very good. Anytime I saw Kraft on, I'd be like, oh, what are we doing? Who's injured right now that can't be playing? Livramento, he had an ankle injury, so it kind of cut him short, but when he was playing in the Champions League, he was doing great. He was dribbling through teams. He was looking very smooth with it. He was making good passes. He was doing pretty good on defense, too. So, yeah, mainly the reason why I didn't give him 8 is because he didn't get as many chances as I would like, so I couldn't confidently give him an 8. And, of course, he got the injury, so he was kind of out for more games than he would want. And finally, for the defenders, we have Matt Targett. He had a hamstring injury, so obviously that doesn't help him. Matt Targett, he just kind of played poor. I don't think there's really much more else to say. He just played poor. 3 pages for the midfielders, as we have a lot. So let's start off with Joelinton. He had a thigh injury, and I don't have very high expectations of Joelinton, I'm going to be honest. The opportunity for him to become a better player is gone. I can't really see him getting much better. However, he does a good job at holding the midfield with Bruno. They make a good duo, I think. Joelinton's kind of like a bruiser. I think overall he did what he was supposed to do. Miguel Almiron. He had a knee injury. Maybe he started and then he got subbed out a lot. Maybe that's what happened. But he didn't play full games very often. And, last year, October, Premier League Player of the Month, I was really expecting to see that this season. I really wanted him to kind of go back into what he does best. He goes down the wing, he cuts back, and he has a shot curl with his left foot into the top bins. And I just didn't see that this season, so I think he played below what he was really supposed to do this season, what he was expected to do. Bruno. Everyone loves Bruno, on our team at least. He had an ankle injury, but that didn't really stop him that much. I think he played the most games out of anyone on the team. He also ran the furthest out of anyone in the Premier League, 493 kilometers, I think it was what it was. I think Bruno's doing great, and I think Bruno is very good at, center defensive mid, kind of like holding mid. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Tonali comes back. Lewis Miley got a back injury while playing with the U18s, but when he played, I think he did very good. He greatly exceeded my expectation. He's 17 years old. I think he's the 4th youngest player to get a goal and an assist in a single game. He has 4 assists in the Premier League, and he was making some of them look like fools out there when he was playing. Let's get it out of the way. Tonali. Gambling violations was his biggest concern this season. I'm a supporter of Tonali, and I look forward to seeing him return. And when he did play for us, he got a goal his very first game. I was feeling very good. I was like, wow, Tonali's going to be fucking great. He's already fitting in a goal in his first game. And then he started to play more, and he wasn't really fitting into our system. So because of what we saw of him wasn't that good is why I give him a 4, which is a poor. I think he played poor for the amount of time that he played. He's not a bad player, and he's not going to do that again when he comes back. Jacob Murphy had a dislocated shoulder injury, very similar to the one that Nick Pope had. Jacob Murphy actually surprised me. When I look at him playing, I don't think he's good. Straight up, I don't think he looks like a good player. But he finds a way to get goals and assists. I think he had 7 goals this season, which is honestly impressive for him. Same can be said for Longstaff. Longstaff had a broken foot at one point during the season, but he kind of came back and bounced back. Longstaff had a lot of goals that kind of came out of nothing. He just created his own chance, and I can't knock a player for that. He did good when he was playing good. I think he did better than what I expected him to play, if I'm being honest. Cannot say the same for Joe Willock. Now, he did get an Achilles injury. Achilles is a pretty bad injury. I think he just played, slightly below average for what I expected him to play. Okay, in the last 3 midfielders, Elliot Anderson. I was in Philadelphia for the summer league last summer, and I saw Elliot Anderson score, 3-4 goals and 2 assists. That made me, very excited for his future. But I knew that he wouldn't get really the chance to shine this season. And then everyone got injured, and then Elliot Anderson was playing a whole lot more. And he got a stress fracture, which is not a very, that's a bad injury as well. But I think of when he played and what he did while he was playing, I think he did perfectly. I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do for the team, which is why he gets a 6 out of 10. Matt Ritchie, never been a fan of Matt Ritchie. But you got to get rid of Matt Ritchie. Nonetheless, when he played, I think he played poorly. Joe White, a 2 out of 10. Why is he playing? He played in 4 games. Maybe for those 4 games, we literally had 2 people on the bench, and we had to sub Joe White in. Joe Willock, Joe White. Why is he playing? Here we are with the forwards. Harvey Barnes had a hamstring injury, so he missed quite a lot of this season. But I think he played above what people were expecting. Anthony Gordon had a reoccurring ankle injury throughout the season, but he had 12 goals, 11 assists. I think he did great for a winger. You look at Vinicius Jr.'s stats, he had 20 goals, 10 assists. Got the same assists as Anthony Gordon. All Gordon has to do is score 8 more goals. And I think that's very doable for him, and he's going to have Vinicius Jr. stats. Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak was easily our best player. He scored the most goals since Alan Shearer. He had a groin injury, so he was kind of in and out of games. But he still managed to score 23 goals on this season, 21 in the Premier League, so he was third. That fucking bitch Cole Palmer was ahead of him. But yeah, so that's why I give him a 9.5. Very close. He's going to get a Ballon d'Or for Holland. You watch. Callum Wilson had a pectoral injury, so he didn't get to play that much. But when he did play, he almost did better than what was expected of him. I expect Callum Wilson to go on, get a goal. That's what he did last season. He had fucking like 20 goals last season. But yeah, so I expected him to do the same. And for his injuries, I think he still did very good. I think he did what he was expected to do. Finally, we have the manager, Eddie Howe. I gave him a 7 out of 10. I think he did better than what I expected him to do. He did well with dealing with the squad and the injuries. The reason he doesn't get higher, though, is because I think some of his game decisions and substitutes need improvement. Sometimes we are trying something and it hasn't been working all game and we don't change. Or we change when we don't need to and then we lose to an Mbappe PK in the last seconds of the game. Overall, I'm going to give our season a 6. It was a mid-season, but at the same time, I think with everything that was going on, I think this was kind of expected in this season. We knew it would be difficult going into Champions League. We knew there'd be a lot of injuries. We knew it would be hard on the managers. We knew it would be hard on the players. I would have liked us to have not been 7th place and battling for a Conference League spot. I would have liked us to have been at least ahead of Chelsea, at least in 6th place, and we very could have done that if we would have just won one more game. If we would have just won one more game, we would have been sitting in the Europa spot. But yeah, so overall, I think that this season was mid, but it was also kind of what we expected. So yeah, those are my ratings for every first team player that played this season. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this season, what you think of my ratings, if I was incorrect, or if you have any differing of opinions. But yeah, thanks for watching, and away the lads.